Okay, this is video 2. Learning objective 2 will develop and use an activity-based costing to allocate indirect costs. Okay, so we've gone from one lump of manufacturing overhead to taking that lump and dividing it up between two departments. And now we're going to take it and allocate it based on what the activities are. So ABC costing is more precise and it reduces distortion to a minimum. Okay, and instead of looking at a department, now it looks at the actual activities. What's really good about this for management is that you can see what things really cost. All right, and you can come up with ways to improve your process so that you can save some of these costs. Before this, you really didn't know what the activities themselves cost. Okay, so the indirect costs are allocated based on the types of activities and the extent to which the activities are used. Okay, so we've gone from departments to activities, and same basic steps is in the departmental allocation, except rather than departments, it's just based on activities. Okay, so sometimes it looks like it's real confusing, but it isn't. Just try to keep it simple in your head. So the first thing that we want to do is figure out what the activities are. And rather than having departments, okay, we've got activities, and we've got a lot of activities. So they've got machine setup. Okay, we found out that setup, for example, took a long time. Material handling, forklifts, gas, operators' wages, okay, prefabricating or fabricating parts. Okay, so machine lease payments, electricity, repairs, supervising, assembly. Then there's inspection and packaging. Okay, so inspections, $170,000. Okay, you may not have realized that before. What else is important here? Okay, material handling is expensive. And once we started costing this, what they did was they rearranged plants so a truck could back right up to a machine right when it's needed. Can you imagine? To try to reduce this material handling cost. Oh, wait a minute. So what's our total? Because our total's $1 million. So it's the same million that we had before, only now we're going to take it and allocate it by activities. And these are the costs that relate to the activity. All right, so then what we do is we go to each activity and we figure out what they do, what's the total number of actions per year for each one of these pools. Like for machine setup, we've got 800 setups that they do. Okay, so let's go back here. We've got $80,000 in machine setups, and we've got 8,000 setups. So we'll take the 80,000 divided by the 8 and get $10 per setup. Okay? Material handling is the number of parts moved, 400,000 parts. All right? So we go to material handling costs. That was $200,000. So 200,000 divided by 400,000 parts, that would be 50 cents per part. Okay? Oops. Then fabricating parts is based on machine hours, which makes sense. Okay, fabrication. Just think we used to allocate everything here in fabrication on machine hours before, or maybe direct labor hours, huh? Yeah. Okay, supervising, that's based on direct labor hours. That's a pretty good driver. That makes sense. Inspection, based on the number of inspections. And then packaging, what they're using is the number of cubic feet packaged. Okay, things like packaging are hard to find drivers for, okay? It's usually based on like numbers of pieces or something like that. So here's our allocation. Can you see this well enough? Here's our calculation. Here's our total cost. 80,000 divided by 8,000 setups is $10 per setup. Okay, 50 cents per part. For fabrication, $24 per machine hour. Supervising, $3, inspecting, $5, and packaging, 25 cents. Do you see what I mean? So what they do then is that once you've got a job, you say, well, how many setups did you have? How many parts? How many machine hours? And then you allocate the overhead that way. Okay, so that's this piece. Take the manufacturing allocated is going to be equal to the cost allocation rate times the actual amount of activity of base used by the job. So here's our example. This is kind of hard to see, isn't it? Let's open this up. Here's, okay, this would be for the elliptical. They had 2 setups, 20 parts, 1 machine hour, 9 direct labor hours. Interesting for supervision. Inspection was 3 inspections, and then packaging was 52 cubic feet. Okay, so there would be the total allocated for the elliptical, 109,000. Now look at this for the treadmill. Those treadmills, I don't know. We have 4 setups, okay, double the number of setups, 26 parts, 4 machine hours, 6 direct labor hours, 6 inspections, and 60 cubic feet. So our total overhead here is $212. So remember, under the predetermined overhead rate, these overhead allocation amounts were the same. They're exactly the same. Whereas under activity-based costing, they're much tighter, and we know exactly why they're allocated the overhead. So in terms of controlling costs, this really helps. And here's another diagram that shows it, and instead of just having, we've still got our $1 million, instead of having just 2 departments here, we've got all these cost pools. Here is our allocation rate, and then we can take the allocation rate times, how much they used, and actually cost the job. So this is a really nice comparison. Here's one elliptical using the plant-wide rate was 160, departmental rate is 140, okay, and the activity-based costing rate is 109. So you can see that the amount of distortion gets less and less as you get a more finely tuned number here. For the treadmill was 160, and it turns out it's 212. Okay, so the departmental rate was better, but not as tight as the activity-based costing rate. Okay,